All right. So yeah, welcome. Welcome to CSCI 1. I'm excited to teach you stuff. So first of all, you don't have to feel the need to write every little thing I say down. I'm going to be drawing on these slides. I'll give them to you and you're going to get a video too, because why not? Yeah, so today is just that standard intro lecture. It's not going to be super long. There will be time for you to ask me questions at the end, do administrative things. So I'll tell you about me, we'll talk about the class in general, and then I'll just go give a high-level intro to computer science, to the critical thinking aspect of this class, because this is a critical thinking class. Yeah, I'll just be up here do that to see all of you because I have to sit down and use a computer while you're also sitting and using a computer. So, who am I? Let's talk about me for just one slide and then we can move on and never do it again. So, hello everyone. My name is Lawton Nichols. I use he and him pronouns, and I will respond to whatever you want to call me. You can call me Mr. Nichols, you can call me Dr. Nichols, I do have a PhD. You can call me Professor Nichols. But honestly, if you feel like it, I would prefer it if you just scrapped all of those and called me by my first name. Please call me Lawton. Okay? So I went to Fresno State for my undergrad, and then I went to UCSB for my PhD. So I have 3 computer science degrees. Hopefully I can teach you something, right? We're going to edit this on the fly because it's a new school year. This is my 3rd year here now. Yay. Actually, my 2nd semester teaching on campus, which is weird. Got hired during the pandemic. So other than sitting at a computer all day, I like to do some other human things. I like to dance and I like to play guitar, among other things. And this is my cat. He's much bigger now, but this is him when he was a wee lad. His name is Lonzo. He's named after Alonzo Church, who was the PhD advisor at Princeton for Alan Turing, who you may know if you haven't heard of Alonzo Church before. Surely you've heard of Alan Turing, maybe. Okay, I also have 2 moss balls, but they are nameless. Maybe you guys can help me name them. So, it's another, mid-post-pandemic semester, so things are going to be weird. We're gonna make it work, though, so please enjoy, and thank you in advance for putting up with me this semester. I'm glad you're here. So, let's just do those boring things that we have to do on the first day, and then we can get into some slightly cooler stuff, okay? I like to do one critical thinking lecture a week and then 1 programming lecture a week. Wednesday will be the programming lecture. Okay. So look forward to that. So info and logistics. Let's do it. This is an in-person class. So I am, for some reason, required to take attendance, even though this is college. So I'm going to do that in a little bit. Just be prepared and make sure to come. I will be pretty lenient because, again, COVID. So if you miss 3 consecutive classes or this very first one, I will drop you. Okay? That's my rule. But I can definitely excuse things if you miss a class due to some unforeseen event or an illness, of course. Okay? So that's my rule. And, let's talk about the class. So this is a computer science. This is the only computer science class that is not a major class here. It's a GE class, a general education class, and so it's not meant to kill you. It's meant to be exciting and for you to learn cool stuff about computer science when you take it. So it's not meant to be the world's most difficult class, but there will be work, of course. You must do that work if you want a grade, okay? So just keep that in mind. Computer science, if you've never programmed before, I'm going to teach you programming in this class. It might be a little weird at the start. It's a way of thinking that you may have never thought that way before, right? So prepare to have your brain hurt for a little while, but I will be here to help you, and I think you will enjoy it as the semester progresses. So yeah, programming is a new way of thinking. If you wait until the last minute, that kind of work can be tedious. Programming in general is kind of like art. You can't really force it at the last minute. Okay, if you've taken a computer science class, you're probably nodding your head right now and you understand what I'm talking about. You will get used to that. But just remember to do the work, and honestly, you can't really do badly in this class if you just do the work, all right? Another thing about computer science that maybe you like or maybe you don't like is it's not about memorizing. There's a million different ways to write the same program. So I'm not going to test you on any one specific thing. I'm going to test you on your critical thinking ability that I'm going to try and foster in this class, okay? And then with all that being said, I'm here to help you as much as I can. You should have seen the Canvas a little bit already. Hopefully you added yourself to the Discord. I'm on that more than I probably should be. Okay, so I'm here to help you. If you need technology, the library is checking out stuff to you guys, so please take advantage of this if you need it. If you need a laptop, the library will check one out to you. If you need a better internet connection, the library will check out to you, what is it? It's called like a MiFi router or something. So you can even get that. Calculators as well for your other classes. So take advantage of that if that is something you need. We have plenty. So yeah, that's some of the administrative stuff. We're going to get into more of that. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about this class so that you don't doze off too much right now. So this class is a lot of things. I'm going to teach you how to program, which is essentially the fancy word for that is computational thinking, thinking like a computer. Okay. This is also a critical thinking class, so I'm going to teach you how to argue well. I'm going to teach you the rules of logic, when things are wrong. How can logic break down? One of those ways is if you introduce what's called a fallacy. Okay, and then I'll also force you to debate each other in this class. Maybe not like yelling at each other, but at least you'll write down your ideas. Okay, and all of these things that I'm teaching you about critical thinking is going to influence and help your computational thinking skills. When I tell my friends, oh yeah, I got a computer science degree, I usually follow up with saying that really I just got a glorified degree in critical thinking, in problem solving, because that's really all it is. You can learn any language, and the same thing happens. You can write the same code, no matter the language. It's the way of thinking that's important to me, okay? And that is what I will try to get across to you. And we'll also talk about computer science issues in general. We'll get into things like ethics. And so we'll talk about that a little bit today in class too. So yeah, I like to run my classes as like a discussion. I don't want to just yell at you all day and then have you go off and do work and be sad. Please talk back. If you have a question, just shout it out. Derail me at any moment. This class is for you. Okay? So that's how I like to run my classes. Ask questions when you have them, and we'll talk about them. So yeah, this class, we're trying to make it be for anybody who wants to take it. So if you have already taken a computer science class, this class is still for you, I promise, okay? It's for you if you want to build your computational thinking and problem solving skills, which is very useful, definitely, no matter your degree. It's for people who want to get credit for a critical thinking class, which is maybe a lot of you. That's okay. I'm glad you're here. And then maybe you are a computer science major, and you've been used to just writing a bunch of programs and turning them in. This class is more about the bigger picture as well. Like, what is the current state of computer science? What are some things that you might learn when you get to a four-year college? Those elective classes. Cooler stuff. Okay. So, yeah, are we doing okay? Are there any questions about anything? Please shout them out when they happen. So yeah, let's go over the syllabus, because that's probably the thing you care most about. You gotta go to the modules page or click that link. But yeah, that's down here. Syllabus. Let's make it large. Actually, let's do this. That will make it even larger. All right, so I'm going to scroll to the thing you probably care about the most, which is your grade breakdown, and then you can read the rest. Okay, so, yeah, the first thing I want to talk about is your check-in surveys. I think you should have seen that by now. So what that is 5% of your grade. It's a very easy 5%. All I do is I force you to answer a few questions and psychoanalyze yourself. So that you can think about, okay, what am I struggling on? How can I improve? Stuff like that. That will help me understand what's going on in your mind, and also it should help you as well. So that'll be nice. Please do those. It's 5% of your grade. We are, for some weird reason, as a computer science professor, I am required to give you and grade essays. I can't understand it either, but you have to write essays in this class. You have to write 6,000 words total, and we'll try and split that up as nicely as possible, but that is going to be 30% of your grade, okay? Written essays and Canvas discussions. That will be nice. And then the thing that I like the most, of course, as a computer science professor, is programming assignments. So you can look forward to those most weeks as well. I'm going to start you off with a language called Scratch. We'll see that on Wednesday. And then later in the semester, we will transition to a language called Python, which is probably the most popular introductory programming language these days. So you'll have that under your belt by the time you leave the class. That'll be nice. We don't actually even teach this in our major classes in computer science, which is surprising. Some schools do, like UC Santa Barbara did. That was their first computer science major class, was taught in Python. All right. Yeah, so one thing that's big about the programming assignments that I want to mention now is if you have taken a CSCI class already, then you are not going to get the same easy assignment that I'm giving the students who have never programmed before in their lives. That would not at all be fair, and you would also be super bored. Okay? So I'm going to give you different programming assignments while the rest of the class is learning Scratch. Okay? And so that will expand your mind, and also you will not fall asleep while you're doing the assignments. Okay? Because you've seen all those concepts before. So that's the idea. And then if you also have taken a CSCI class and you don't like the assignments that I'm suggesting, we can come up with something together. Okay? As long as it's a similar amount of work, I'm happy with you learning whatever you want to learn. All right. So that is mostly the grade breakdown. 30% is the programming assignments. We will have one midterm in the middle of the class, so that's week 8 is going to be when I plan to have it. And then 20% will be a final exam at the end of class. Okay? So that is the grade breakdown. Let me just finish this slide, and then I'll see if we have any questions about this. I recommend a book in this class. A lot of the critical thinking lectures are based on it. You do not have to buy it. It's this one, A Gift of Fire. But it will definitely give you some ideas for the essays if you're interested in looking into it. Okay, so consider buying that. Another thing I like to do is give extra credit. I usually like to give about a letter's grade worth of extra credit throughout the semester. So look forward to that if you're interested in doing it. And then finally, this is an in-person class. If you look it up in the table on the school's website, that tells us that our final exam will be Wednesday, December 7th from 4 p.m. to 5:50 p.m. Okay, so that's when I'll be here in this room, and you'll come and you'll take the test. Yeah? So that is probably the most important slide to you right now. Are there any questions about anything I just said? Let's see. Nice. All right, if we're good, let's keep on trucking then. So let's talk about late submissions. I have an interesting policy for that. So I'm going to be pretty lenient with late submissions. I will let you turn in late programming assignments and late check-in surveys up to the last day of instruction, so right before finals week. You're welcome. But to balance that out, I will take away half your credit the second you turn something in late. Okay? So hopefully that seems fair to you. It's much better to get a 50 than a 0, though. Yeah? The one thing I will not accept late, though, is essays, because those take way too long to grade, and I don't want a million of those right before the final. Okay? So that is my gift to you. Another thing that I like to do that might be different to some professors is due dates. Let's talk about those. This is something you might have to get used to if you haven't taken a class with me before. So every assignment in this class, except for the check-in surveys, which will be due at like 5:30 or something, I will have them due at 5 p.m. on their due date. Okay? So plan on turning things in at 5 p.m. The reason for this is because things go wrong around the due date time, don't they? Especially in computer science if you're trying to write a program. So let's just make sure that I'm awake and able to help you when things start going wrong. Okay? That's why I'm doing this the way I'm doing it. So plan on turning things in and having things ready by 5 p.m. on due dates. It's not midnight. Okay? Though, I do offer some exceptions that should seem fair to you. I think we can all agree that these students will deserve these exceptions. So you tell me if any of these apply to you. All right? If you work at least half time, school doesn't count though. It's your fault if you're taking 20 units, right? Then I will extend your due dates by 7 hours. So then you can stay up and turn things in by midnight. Okay? You deserve that if you're working half time. If you work at least full time, or if you do something that is equivalent to a full-time job like care for a child, something like that, then I will give you an extra 15 hours for all of your assignments. Okay? So you can either stay up late or wake up early and get it in. That should help you guys get things in when they need to be turned in. So please tell me if any of those exceptions apply to you, and I will put you in that group and make sure you get those due dates that you deserve. Okay? So that's my plan. Questions about this?
Do you want us to send you that email?
Yeah. Send it on email. Tell me on Discord. That might be my favorite method, if you can. And then I'll make sure you're in the right due date group. All right. Also, in regard to assignments, so I will drop some of your lowest scores. I will drop your 3 lowest programming assignments. So if you do poorly on a couple of them, it'll be like they never happened. Okay? I know we are human. So that's that. And yeah, the last thing is Discord, in fact. Second to last thing, I guess. So let me show you our class Discord. Have we all been able to get on this? Have you had any trouble at all with this? I can definitely help. But Discord is what I want you to use. I would strongly prefer you use this for asking questions and having discussions with your peers. I have definitely not opened this laptop since summer, so it's installing some Discord updates, and then I will show it to you. So if you've never used Discord before, it's pretty popular, and it's just a nice little chat app. You can get it on your phone, you can get it on your computer. It's just a nice little place. Still going. And I will show it to you when it chooses to open itself. Oh, we have some ants in this classroom. Lovely. It's trying. There it goes. About it. There we go. All right, so here's our classes Discord. And once you join it, you'll be taken to this welcome channel. You scroll up to the tippy top, right? You click the 100 emoji, you click the dog, and then you click your pronouns if you want to. And make sure that your username has at least your last name in it so that I know who you are. All right, so that is the Discord, and once you click the dog, you will have access to the CSCI 1 channel, which is where I'd like you to put all of your discussion questions and stuff that you want to ask your peers, just so that we don't like pollute the general channel with CSCI 1 specific things. Okay? Feel free to use the general and the random channel for things that sound like they should be there. Okay? So that's that. What I'd like you to do, if you can, is ask your questions publicly on our CSCI 1 channel, if you feel that it's appropriate to do so. Okay, because then your peers can help if I'm asleep or something and something's going wrong. The one thing that I don't want you to do on Discord and publicly post is like your full thought out answers to things, your programming language code, all that stuff. That is not fair to post publicly, right? So you should be sharing that. If you have a question, you should be talking just to me. Send me a direct message, okay? I'm up here. You can like right click me, click message. I can't message myself, but that's the idea. Okay? So message me those kinds of questions that don't deserve to be public. Okay, so use your judgment there. I trust you. But that's how I want you to use Discord, and I strongly encourage you to use it instead of email or like Canvas messages. Because I think you can understand as a professor, my email is disgusting. I'll have a better time finding your question because it'll just appear as a notification over here. Okay? So that's the idea. That's Discord. We're good with that? All right. Second to last thing for attendance. Let's talk about office hours. So I will have some hybrid office hours because I have some online classes as well. So you're going to actually get good access to me on Mondays and Wednesdays, in fact. It might take me a while to get to my Zoom link and turn it on, but I will be having office hours immediately after this class on Monday and Wednesday. So if you have something to talk about with me, you can definitely just walk with me to my office. It's AC1 284 right up the stairs. Okay? So that's quite nice. I'll also be on Zoom if you want to go home and then ask me questions there. But it might take me a couple minutes to get on, maybe not exactly at 5:20. All right, so that's my office hours. This is when I want to have them. Also have a virtual one on Fridays as well. So if you want to ask me things, that is a good time to do so. Yeah, and it's I'll have them all on Zoom, so you can just click the link wherever you want to click it. Okay, so that's my current plan. Some meetings might change these office hour plans, so just check it before you come. Make sure I'm there. But I think these ones after my classes for the day, nobody's going to want to schedule a meeting at 6 at night, so should be all right. All right, so that's my office hours. Please come to them, ask me questions. Yeah, I think that is mostly everything that I wanted to say. The final thing before we get to the meat and some content that I want to help you with is let's talk about getting stuck. Because if you haven't taken a computer science class before, it's a different beast. All right, so you're gonna get stuck, especially when you're writing a program. Maybe even when you're writing an essay, and that's okay. What I want you to do is not stare at your screen for 5 hours. I want you to ask me a question so that I can help you get unstuck, okay? So let's pick an amount of time. Let's say if you've been stuck for 30 minutes on a problem, 30 straight minutes, and you don't know what to do next, that's when you should ask for help. Post a public question, ask me in a Discord message privately, come to office hours, go to the tutorial center, something should happen after that, okay? Don't just stare at your screen. There is no virtue in that, all right? Getting stuck for 29 minutes, on the other hand, that's exactly what I want to have happen. That's how you learn, okay? So that is the tug of war that is learning computer science. So please ask for help when you need it. Don't try and do it all yourself because some things you need a little help with. Okay, so that is my rule for that. And then I think if we're good, if there's no questions, I think we're ready to take attendance, and I'm going to show you how to do it. Okay, are we ready? All right. So what I would like you to do is go to our beautiful class website that I have made for us. It is www.lautensclass.com. Everybody, please go there, and it will give you a login link. I'm already logged in. Oh, no, I'm not. So it'll look like this once you get there. And let me show you how to log in. So your username right now and your passwords are both the same. It's going to be your last name, all lowercase, and underscore, and then your student ID. Okay. So here's my last name. Here's my made-up student ID. This is my username, and also my password. Right? Okay. If your last name has some accent marks, some dashes, get rid of all of those. Make it that kind of text, all lowercase, no accents, an underscore, and your student ID. That is both your username and your password. Right? So everybody, please log in and let me know if you can't. And I will make it work. This will be how we take attendance right at the start of every class. I made all the accounts on Friday. I think I downloaded the roster around noonish. So if you added the class later than that, you do not have an account, and I need to add one for you. So I'll give you a couple minutes to log in. Is anyone having issues? Yeah, I wanted to make it fun for you. Okay, yeah. What is your last name? How do you spell that? That was exactly the same. Exactly the same. What's your last name? What is your name? And then you copy and paste that into your password and it doesn't work. Oh no, exactly the same. And your password. There you go. Everybody else able to get it? Oh, I see. Yeah. here on the screen is, you walk up here, it's written on the board. I think it's a capital P. Honestly, can't tell. Try it with a capital P or a lowercase p, but it's password with an @ sign for the A. And let's just do it. I'll just keep it running. All right, so this is much better than me calling all your names, right? So here's how we'll take attendance every day. So you'll go to your take attendance, I'll go to mine, and I'll be like, we are CSCI 1, begin attendance. And then I'll give you a little bit to like click a button. Any of the buttons work. Please tell me that you're here. This is peak efficiency. Click a button, otherwise I have to drop you from the class, so make sure it said it took your response. If you don't show up the first day of class, which means if you don't click a button right now, I drop you. It will be shown right after I click end attendance. That's when it records it all. Dun, dun, dun. So has everybody clicked a button? Raise your hand right now if you didn't, because I'm going to stop the attendance. Okay. You having trouble, or? I'll give you until 2 minutes, let's say, and then I'll stop it. But yeah, that's going to be a standard thing. So please remind me if I forget, but that's how we'll take attendance in the class. I'll give you a couple minutes to log in, get that in, and that'll be it. All right, has anybody not said that they're here? All right. Boop. So now that I clicked end, you should be able to click the little view my attendance thing and just confirm that you were here. And that way nobody is afraid. All right. So with that, that's going to be the little pattern that we'll do when we get to class each day. All right. So that's our class website, and there are more links to click. This last one is not going to be for this class; it's for my other classes, but the other ones you'll use. So let's get into the actual lecture. Let's have you all meet each other a little bit. So another thing that I like to do in this class is something called peer instruction. Okay, I will ask you to answer some questions on this little other link that I lovingly call ByClicker. It's me stealing the idea of iClickers, which you may have seen from like a giant physics class or something like that. You have to buy this expensive clicker and click the button and answer your questions that way. No, we are computer scientists. I made a website for you to do that for free. Quite nice. So I call that ByClicker, because why not? And I will also sometimes split you guys up into groups, or just have you form groups with whoever's close to you, and have you work on a problem. Okay, and then maybe you all answer on the ByClicker app, something like that. That's called peer instruction, if you've never heard of that before. And all the research says that is the way to learn. Okay, you guys learn much better than me yelling at you. You learn so much better by teaching each other. Okay, so I'm not going to split you into groups for these next questions. I just want you guys to respond based on what you know, what you are, just to get to know you. And yeah, our first question is on the next slide. So please go to the buy clicker link on the class website. And this will be our first in-class exercise, which could be abbreviated to ICE. And our mascot here at Clovis is called the Crush, which is like a bowl or something. I don't know why it's called the Crush, but it is. And so obviously I'm going to combine these two words, and our in-class exercises will be called crushed ices. So that makes me happy. So yeah, please go to buy clicker and let us introduce ourselves. So please tell me what your major is. That standard question that everybody asks. I'll give you like 30 seconds to respond. So A, B, C, D, or E. Tell me what you are. Let's see the makeup of this class. And it should be the most varied makeup that I have for any of my classes, because this is a non-major computer science class. And that makes it all the more exciting. All right, can you see? All right, I think we're all there. Cool. Let's see what we are. A lot of us are computer science majors. If I go back here, computer science or computer engineering. And that's expected. I think we offer these to you like on your little major sheets or something. So I'm glad you're here. You got some D's and some E's as well, some other STEMs, or something entirely different. Nice. I'm glad you are all here. So now we know a little bit about the class. Let's do one more. Have you ever programmed before? I have a feeling this is going to be a very similar looking graph, given the answers, but please tell me, have you ever programmed before? That's half of this class. I'll teach you some cool stuff if you never have. I don't expect you to have programmed before. All right, let's see. Nice. Look at us, we're so efficient. So A, B, and C. So it looks like the majority is saying B here, and those are probably the engineers and computer scientists. Yes, but it's been a while, that's okay. And the no-nevers, don't worry. This class is absolutely for you. I'm going to teach you how to program from scratch in a language also called Scratch, which is extra fun. And then some recent people have maybe taken a class over the summer or last semester. So awesome. So all the A's make friends with the B's and the C's. That's for sure. Okay. So yeah, thanks for playing along with that. I'd like to get into just a little bit of the lecture now. Let's talk about the history of computer science. That'll be a nice little introductory lesson. And hopefully there are some things that you've never seen before if you're experts. So let's talk about the history of computer science. And so we have to go back. What would be the first computer? We have to think about that. So if we ask the dictionary, right, a computer is just a tool that helps us perform computation. I think the first computer then is the abacus, right? That's a tool, helps us add. I guess there are also algorithms for division and multiplication. I'm sure also subtraction. But let's say that was the first computer. Way back in the BC era. Crazy. So I think things have gotten a bit more complicated since then. So that's probably the first computer. And then we jump forward a long way. We go to the 1700s, and that's when this field of computer science really got started, I would say. Okay. We have binary getting formulated, the idea of binary, the idea of logic, formal logic, writing down things, and all the rules to have a good argument, stuff like that we'll talk about later in this class. So all this, these two things, were invented by a man named Gottfried Wilhelm von Leibniz. So you may have heard this name before if you've taken a calculus class. So dude also invented calculus, among other things that are useful to us computer scientists. So yeah, we're going to talk about formal logic later in the class, but let me just show you a little bit of binary right now. Maybe we haven't heard, or we've probably heard the word before, but maybe we don't know exactly what it means. Binary, and I will teach you it in much more detail later. Binary, let me learn how to write on this tablet again. Binary is what's called base 2, okay? We, as humans, we think in base 10. Our numbers are made up of 10 digits, right? 0 through 9, that's 10 digits total. And the second we need to add 1 to 9, we have to add a new place, right? We run out of digits. So binary is base 2. That means we only have zeros and ones to work with. We make all of our numbers with just zeros and ones. So the first number 0 is just 0. Then the number 1 is 1. And then we've run out of digits. So we have to add a new place. So the number 2 in binary is 1, 0. It has to be. That's crazy. So we'll learn a bit more about that later, but that's a start. And then there's other forms of number systems as well that are useful for computer scientists. Another is called hexadecimal, where instead of having 10 digits, we have 16. And so now we need letters to make up numbers, which is cool to think about. And those can translate easily to binary, for binary digits each. So yeah, this is when computer science kind of like got its foundation, I would say. Logic. That is the underlying thing that a computer is really good at. Thinking logically, doing the same exact thing over and over and over again. Yeah. So that is 1702. Let's jump forward a century. Let's talk about Charles Babbage. This man had a very interesting idea. So he made something simpler than this, but he was really going after what was called the analytical engine. I don't think he ever built it himself, but he made the schematics for it, something like that. And then eventually somebody at a museum built it. But he made something slightly simpler before it. But what he was going for was this thing called the analytical engine, which was probably the first idea of a real computer. It was all mechanical based, so like little cranks and things. But you could program it with what are called instructions. So let's talk about that. So you could plug into this analytical engine a program that looked something like this. Like the first instruction was, let's say, add the numbers that are sitting in X and Y, because it had the idea of memory. Add those numbers into some other variable, call it Z, something like that. And I can do that over and over again. And then maybe like the next instruction was take the square root of Z, since we just put a new number in Z. Take the square root of Z. And then maybe the last thing that it needs to do is like on its little display window down here, please show whatever Z is. Okay, so you could calculate some fancy mathematical computation with this analytical engine by like turning some cranks and things. Okay, so that was like the first computer. The idea of having these individual instructions that together get you what you were looking for. Okay, that's programming in a nutshell. And please, again, just stop me at any point if you have any questions about this or want to talk about it. Maybe you know more than me about some of these things. The next one, 1843, Ada Lovelace, she worked with Charles Babbage. She was, She was a colleague. So this woman, first of all, she was the first programmer, by the way. She made the first program for Charles Babbage's analytical engine. If I zoom in, here was the program. It was designed to compute the Bernoulli numbers, which are useful in statistics, among other things. But she was the first person to write a complete program for Babbage's analytical engine, which is awesome. So she was the first programmer. She was also royalty. So she was the Countess of Lovelace, by the way. And if that wasn't cool enough, like I want to be this woman. She was so awesome. She was, gosh, what is his name? Let's look her up because I forget. Ada Lovelace. This is too important. You've taken an English class, I'm sure. She was, yes. You maybe heard about Lord Byron in English class. She was the only legitimate child of Lord Byron. He had plenty other illegitimate children, but she was the only legitimate one. And so, also royalty, also related to a very famous poet. She had everything going for her. So the first computer programmer, Ada Lovelace. All right, that's fun. Then in 1854, a man named George Boole, he invented what's called Boolean algebra, which is probably the underpinning, we can say, for every modern computer. Okay, working with Boolean values, and what those are true and false. So true is like a 1, false is like a 0, high voltage, low voltage when we get to electrical computers. But just with true and false, you can compute everything. And I'll show you a little bit about that later in the class. But it's a really big step. And you can combine true and false in cool ways. Like there's operations like 1 and this squiggle, we call it and. 1 anded with 1 is also equal to 1. There are a bunch of different operations like this one that do cool things. And eventually, like, add numbers. And eventually, multiply numbers. Eventually, make images appear. Any program can be written, essentially, with Boolean algebra. Just true and false. Just ones and zeros. And so that's very useful to us. Another reason why we need binary. Okay? So I'll teach you how to read these kinds of diagrams that compute cool stuff. But yeah, it was George Poole who thought this way first. And this allows us to have electrical computers eventually. All right. Then we get into pre-World War II era. We have Alan Turing. Definitely look his life up if you have not ever heard about him. Very, very smart man. Very, very sad end to his life. So, yeah, he was a theoretical computer scientist. So he came up with the idea of what's called the Turing machine. And another term has been applied to his name called the Turing test that we'll talk about later in the class. So a Turing machine is a model for anything that can be computed ever by a computer. Okay? So it's a mathematical way of specifying anything that a computer could ever compute, even in 1936, even today. Okay? Any program can be modeled in terms of this thing called a Turing machine, and that allows you to prove some nice mathematical properties of programs, which lets us have really nice things like planes that don't crash, stuff like that. Very important. So Alan Turing worked a lot on trying to mathematically specify programming languages, and so I pay a lot of respect to him because that was pretty much my PhD. I did a lot of stuff on top of his work, essentially. All right, so that's Alan Turing. And then, same year, different country. I don't remember if we were happy with the Germans right now, but back in 1936, we had Konrad Zuse. He invented the first digital computer. So the first computer that was completely electric, no cranks, no moving parts. It was all electricity flowing across wires, doing cool Boolean algebra stuff to calculate whatever answer you're trying to calculate, running all of its little individual instructions to perform some computation. Isn't that neat? So it's almost the 100th anniversary of that, isn't it? That's really nice. And so, yeah, that brought together a lot of stuff that has been building up over the years that were on the previous slide. So, like, we had our zeros and ones, 0, 1. That was mapped to, like, off or on electrically. And that was mapped to true or false. False or true. Let's keep it correct. False or true. So then we could use Boolean logic. And then if we wanted to, like, think of this as, like, digital signals, we always have to send some amount of voltage through a wire to keep it on. So low or high voltage. And then we have digital electronics. So definitely the computer engineers know more about this than me, but that is the gist of it. The first digital computer. Isn't that awesome? So this is just fun to talk about. Please yell at me if you have any questions or want to discuss. Are we ready to keep going? Just a fun little story time for most of today. Then we get close to the 50s, after World War II. Lots of money poured into research. We have the invention of the transistor. And this is probably the most important invention of, some people have said the millennium, honestly. It has enabled so many nice things. This tiny little thing called a transistor. So let me tell you a little bit about it. First of all, it was developed at a phone company, at Bell Labs. They had a lot of research and development money there. So a phone company developed this thing called a transistor, and oh man, is it cool. So let me talk to you about the two things that a transistor can do, and actually the first thing we don't even care about, but I want to tell you about it anyway. So a transistor, you might have heard of, like, the phrase transistor radio or something like that. A transistor is really good at amplifying a signal, so you give it a little weak signal, maybe coming in over the wire, coming in wirelessly, that is, so like your Wi-Fi, your radio, Bluetooth, and then you feed that through with some extra power to a transistor, and it amplifies that signal so that you can send it to speakers, or you can actually decode it, things like that. So that's one thing that a transistor is really good at. And as a guitarist, I am very thankful because that allows for electric guitars, right? So here's your little amp. Here's a little guitar. Let me try my best to draw a guitar. It looks normal. I tried. So an electric guitar, you plug that into an amp. Here's what's happening. You have metal pickups, you have metal strings. You have pickups that have magnets in them. The vibration of the strings as you're playing your electric guitar creates magnetic flux, which induces a voltage in the wire that is coming out of the pickup. And oh man, you can send that weak signal to an amplifier, which has a transistor inside of it, and that can get amplified and make beautiful noises. So that's beautiful. That's lovely. That's one thing that a transistor can do, but actually we don't care about that at all as computer scientists. The other thing is the more important thing. It can function as a switch. So if you send a tiny amount of voltage, here's like a transistor as a switch. If you send a weak amount of voltage, so there's like input, and then here's a wire, right? It's trying to send stuff from here to here. Right now, the circuit is open, so there's nothing flowing right now this way. No electricity flowing. If you send just a weak signal. But if you send a little bit more voltage, send a higher voltage, then this clamps shut. And then we have output, on or off. We can control these little tiny switches, and if you order them up in a special enough way, you can create, you can create Boolean logic, and then you can create computation. Okay? So that's pretty much as far as we're going to get into this idea in this class. If you're interested in this, you have to either, as a computer science major, wait until CSCI 45, the very last class you take here, as a computer science major, or you just become an engineer. One of the two. Take a physics class. Okay, so that's a very important concept. There are like billions of transistors and everything these days, like your CPU. Billions upon billions of transistors. It's wonderful. All right. So yeah, this allows us to like represent a 0 if it's not flowing, or a 1 if it is. All right, any questions about this stuff? Are we happy still? So we're almost to the end, and then we'll talk about something different. Dun, dun, dun. So yeah, let's talk about ARPANET. The next thing, I'll try to go a bit faster because I want to do some stuff at the end. Let's talk about ARPANET. That was the precursor to the internet. So back in the day, you just had to run wires to places, and the very first 4 places on the ARPANET were the following 4 schools/research institutes. You had UCLA, UC Santa Barbara, where I went, and then Stanford Research Institute. And the fourth thing online was Utah State, or University of Utah, I forget. And that was back in 1969. And so, yeah, I didn't take a networking class at UCSB, sadly, but they were the 3rd thing on the internet. Very cool. And then eventually we just connected everybody together, right? But this idea of sending data to other people, it really started in the 60s, in fact. So relatively recently. And that was probably because computers were so giant back in the day. Back before we shrunk them down, we learned how to make smaller and smaller transistors. So we didn't have personal computers for a very long time. The first computers were the size of this room. We heard of that before? That's a weird thing to think about, but it's true. So eventually, transistors got small enough that we could package them up into personal computers. It was a very weird concept to want to have your own computer back in the day. And back in 1976, we could say it was probably the first popular personal computer called the Apple I, invented by 2 Steves, Wozniak, him, and then Jobs, the other one. Very, very nice. And so they created the very first personal computer, the Apple I, and then their next version of that, the Apple II, made them lots and lots of money. And they made a company out of that. The rest is history. Okay, so that was the 70s. That was when people wanted to have their own computers. Very, very cool. All right, the very last piece of history I want to say, for most of these slides, I talked about a man, except for one. I want to just highlight the fact that computer science is not just a bunch of dudes, right? So let me highlight the contributions of a number of very famous women in computer science. We first have Grace Hopper. She has an entire conference named after her these days, but very special to me because my specialty in grad school was programming languages. And so she made some great contributions to programming languages and their compilers. She actually was the first person to use the word bug to describe a software error. Woohoo! So she kind of coined the term for us, at least. It existed in engineering. We have Sophie Wilson. She helped design the ARM architecture, which is in everybody's phone right now. If you have a phone or a tablet, you have an ARM processor inside of that phone/tablet. So we have Sophie to thank for that. Or if you have one of the new MacBooks, right? The M1 processors, things like that. Very power efficient, very useful for making us all interconnected. So thank you. We have Shafi Goldwasser. So she won what's called the Turing Award in computer science. And have we heard of that before? It's essentially the Nobel Prize of computer science. You make $1 million if you win it, just like the Nobel Prize winners. So it's very, very important. And she won this for her work in cryptography. I am definitely not qualified enough to talk about exactly what she discovered, but there is a concept called fully homomorphic encryption that will probably change the world if we can make it fast enough. So maybe look into that. It's a fun Wikipedia topic. And then finally, over here on the right, we have Margaret Hamilton. She was in charge of the team that took us to the moon. So she led the team that produced the software for the Apollo program. And this is a very famous picture, if you haven't seen it before. She's standing next to a printout of all the software, all the programs, every line of it that they wrote for the lunar landing. The team she led, wrote, which is awesome. That's just such an iconic picture. I love looking at it. Okay, so yeah, that is my brief little history of computer science. Hopefully that was a fun little story time. Do we have any questions about that? Anything we want to discuss? So I want this to be a conversation. If not, I have some questions about ethics for you guys that I'm going to force you to discuss. We're good to keep going? I honestly don't know. I lost count. Once you learn a couple, it's really easy to learn more. Like it takes no effort at all. There are a bunch of different flavors of programming languages, and so once you learn the major flavors, nothing is surprising to you. You can read anybody's code. Maybe it takes you some Googling to write something, but yeah, it's not hard to learn a lot. Right now, I teach C++ and Python, and so those are the ones I'm best at right now. I've gotten rusty at the rest. Yeah. Any other questions? Is Python in this class? All right. So let's jump down here to ethics. So back to the critical thinking side of things. We're eventually going to tie this into computer science, but let me throw some ethical questions at you right now. We have until 5:15. Yeah, plenty of time. So here are some standard questions that you'd be asked in like a philosophy class. This is essentially philosophy time for computer scientists. So is it okay to steal to feed your family? That's one question that you can ponder. How much privacy should we have from our government, from the websites we visit? That's a computer science flavor of ethics. Is it right to track everybody across the internet with cookies and stuff like that? And then back to like formal ethics. Is it right to kill somebody if it means you save 50? Maybe you've heard of like the trolley problem. That's essentially that question, right? And the weird thing to think about is there isn't a right answer, is there? You could argue either way. And that's great for this class because if I ask you to write something, there is no right answer. I just want to see how well you have learned to argue, how well you can do it. Okay, so that's fun for me to read what you guys write. So these are ethical questions, okay? Does that make sense? This is the idea of ethics. What is good? What is right? It is completely up in the air. There is no right answer, okay? So your job is to create an argument, and there are definitely good and bad arguments, though, of course. Okay, so I'm going to teach you what makes a good argument in this class. Arguments. Arguments can be sound. That's an adjective that can describe a good argument. You want your arguments to be sound. You want them to be valid. There are a bunch of other terms that we'll talk about later in the class. But yeah, even though there is no right answer, there's definitely a wrong argument. And we'll talk about what makes an argument wrong. Like if it has a fallacy in it, for example. We'll get to that. Okay. So that's ethics. And with that in mind, before I send you off to think about this as a group, I'm going to give you another crushed ice in a second. I want to introduce your first assignment. And this next question will help you get started on it. So here is an assignment. Let's go on Canvas to it. So I'll go to the modules page and I'll make it available. This will be due, boop, boop, mini essay ethics. Very short for this first one. This will be due on the 16th. So that's going to be next Tuesday. All right? With my standard due date stuff, right? So make sure to get in the right group before then. So it'll be due on August 16th, depending on your extension criteria. And that will be your first assignment. What I'd like you to do is just respond to the prompt on Canvas. You'll make a post. It'll be 250 words long. That's my word requirement. Note the due date, and here's what you'll do. You'll answer 2 of the questions from that previous slide. Just in some essay form, I don't care how, answer these 2 questions. Is it okay to steal to feed your family? You can write just 2 paragraphs if you want. And is it right to kill 1 person if it means that you will save 50? I want to see your argument abilities right now. Okay? And we will make them better as the class progresses. Okay? So definitely what I'd like you to do is argue. Explain your answers. Mention why you don't agree with the other side's arguments. Like, make it good. There is no right answer, but you can't just say, yes, enter. Right? And turn it in and expect credit. There is no right answer, but you still must give reasons and argue your points in a convincing way. And if I get you to do this enough, you'll get better at arguing. All right, so that is your first essay. Remember the due date. I think I just clicked published yes. So you should see it. You should be able to see it on Canvas now. And to help you get there, what I would like you to do is get into little peer instruction groups. So here is how I want you to do it. I guess it doesn't have to be anything normal. Maybe if you're at a row, just introduce yourselves to the people in your row. Say hi. If there's not enough people on your row, look to the other side. Things like that. So introduce yourselves and have a discussion. So please pick one of, I'll go back to this slide with the questions. Pick one of them as a group and start coming up with arguments for and against. I want to get you starting to think about what one side might think and what the other side might think. And I don't care which side you care about, right? You have to start coming up with both sides' arguments so that you can knock down the one you don't agree with. Okay? That's very important. So I want you to come up with, as a group, 2 arguments for, after you pick a question, 2 arguments for a question and 2 arguments against a question. Okay? For the privacy question, let's say like one side means they like privacy, one side means they don't like privacy. So save the answers and the ways you came up with them for your first essay, and that'll be that. So take like, I don't know, I'll give you 5 minutes to introduce yourselves, say hi, pick a question, and start brainstorming ideas. And you can definitely steal some of those ideas for your essay. Okay? So I'll see you in 5 minutes. I'll set a little timer. And I'll walk around. If you have any questions for me, just shout them out, raise your hand. This is very open-ended, though. About 2 minutes left. I'll come back. All right, about 30 more seconds. All right, that is my alarm. So let's come back just briefly. I hope we had some good discussions. Were we able to come up with at least 2 arguments for and 2 against? A good thing to have, a good, powerful tool to have in your belt. An idea to think differently. I'm sure you have one opinion, but I want you to think how other people might think. Okay? All right, so usually I will ask you to share those answers, or you'll write them down in some public way, like I give you a Google Doc, and then we'll talk about them. But you can save this discussion for your first essay, and I'll read about it then. Okay? So, let's see, we end at, 5:15? That's how this works. So, I'm going to try to do this. I'm going to try to always have a little bit of time at the end of the lecture, especially once we start learning how to program. I'm going to have a bit of time so that you can stay and ask me questions. I also have office hours immediately after this, if you're interested. So you can do work while I'm here. And this is like part of the class. I'm not like saying leave please because I'll be here. But if you finished, oh, hello. Nice. That's okay. If you finished all your work, though, you're of course free to go. I'm not going to keep you here. I'm not going to like chain you to your desk or anything. But yeah, this is what I like to do in this class. I want to make sure you have enough time to ask me questions and be in front of me. Okay. So yeah, that's the end of the lecture. Feel free to hang out for another 15 minutes, or if you think you're ready to do your essay and you have all your ideas in your head and you just need to go write them somewhere privately, go be free. That's all I got, and I'll post these slides and this video in a little bit.